What did you think? So I've been tweeting for about 8 months. People have been saying, oh, is it really the end? Is this going to be, are they going to have any more? And I keep tweeting out, I can't believe they're going to end it here. I can't believe there's not going to be more. And now you know why I've been tweeting that all this time. So I can finally talk about this a little bit. I can finally talk about what it was that Chris had asked me to do. And so I had come up with what I thought was a really good idea that had to do with sequencing the genome and what they were going to find there for the first episode. And Chris said, what I want you to do is I want you to come up with a way to kill everybody off. And this is actually the third time I've been asked to do this. This isn't the first. And so I said, well, kill everybody off? I said, everybody except the chosen few, right? And he goes, yeah, the chosen. Yeah, everyone except the chosen few. And then it was like, and Scully's one of the chosen few. I mean, that's what he wanted. He said, yes, Scully. Scully is the chosen few. So I had to come up with a way to kill everybody off. And I had done something for a National Geographic show called Zombie Earth. I don't know if any of you saw that. It was actually good. But where we killed everybody off with rabies. So when you're asked to kill everybody off as a scientist, you're not asked this a lot. Okay? But number one, you don't want to come up with something that anyone could actually do. Okay? That's number one. And number two, you really don't want to just come up with something that everybody's seen before. So, the obvious thing is, okay, another alien virus, and that would have been easy to do, but I didn't want to do an alien virus. And so what I wanted to do was to literally get rid of everybody's immune system. And I thought that then anything would kill you off. And so the idea with the science is, there's a gene called adenosine deaminase. I actually teach this, and there's some students here from my class. And we're going to actually hit this in the next 2 lectures. Okay, so I'm just letting you know. But this is the boy in the bubble syndrome. Why do you have the boy in the bubble syndrome? They have no immune system. And so these children are born, and they don't have the ADA gene. So you're really pretty much okay. Although my friend Margaret Fearon says, well, you're not exactly okay. But it's like, okay, you're okay. But you have no immune system. So you have no immunity, so you literally have to be in this plastic bubble. And it's one gene. It's just a simple gene. It takes a amino group off of one of the nucleotides. It's like it's nothing. But for your immune system, it's everything. The cells die. So if you're born without ADA, you have no immune system to begin with. But what Margaret was telling us all, including me, after I came up with this, is that in adults, you can get an onset of it as well, where you begin to lose your immune system because you lose ADA. So the idea was to use CRISPR-Cas because that was really big, it's still big now. But it was really big, was it about 9 months ago when we were doing this. And so the idea is that somehow you would have this DNA in you that would target the ADA gene. And something would have to then activate this. So Margaret and I had to come up with, well, how did it get into everyone? And then what would activate it? So how would it get into everyone? We didn't want to use the MMR vaccine because why are we going to, frighten people even more from getting their kids vaccinated? I mean, it was hard enough to do the smallpox. But we figured no one's getting a smallpox vaccine anymore, so it's already been done. So we figured, well, we'd have it come in with the smallpox vaccine, and that there'd be a second virus that would be able to get into every single cell. And that virus would carry in with it this piece of DNA that would code for what you needed to in order for CRISPR-Cas to work. And it would target the ADA gene. And so then the question was then, how would you activate this? I know this was supposed to be question and answer, but I thought you might be interested in this, okay? So how would you activate it? Now, I had a really good idea, I thought, for activating it. I was not into chemtrails. I never even heard of chemtrails. Yeah. Chris wanted chemtrails. He wanted aluminum. So I thought, well, iron can activate gene expression, so why not aluminum? Fine. But my idea was to have actually the level of CO2. And that this was early activation. That it wasn't actually supposed to get activated this early, because back in the 70s or 60s when this was done, and they were kind of tracking how much CO2 was in the atmosphere, they were figuring back then that nobody, no decent society would do nothing about CO2 levels. So they'd obviously do something about it, which would mean that it would take a certain amount of time before the level would get high enough to trigger this. But of course it triggered early because we're doing nothing. Okay, so that was my idea. He didn't like it. So he wanted chemtrails. So the chemtrails then were activating this, and then everyone starts, dying. And I had a subtitle for this episode, which was Scully's Brains and Blood Saved the World. So that has been my subtitle the whole time, because, of course, Scully was going to save the world. And, but there's something that, I must admit, Margaret and I have been, mapping out the science for what we hope is the next episode if Fox, decides to get in touch with Chris and others and ask, do you want to do another episode? It'd be nice of them to do that. But we're kind of mapping it out. So I don't want to really tell you what we're mapping out, but there's something that Agent Einstein says, which is, we're all going to have alien DNA then. And I want to kind of leave you with something before the question and answer, which is, the aliens aren't stupid. Could this be what they wanted all along? So maybe this is their plan. Inquiring minds want to know. So that just gets you into a little bit about how the science came up with this. So what was my role in this? Obviously coming up with the whole, the ADA deficiency and people, dying of everything. And the soldier, that was my idea. And I know I'm going to hear from a Twitter friend who writes for Military Times because you cannot get sick from your anthrax vaccine even if you have no immune system, because it's a dead vaccine. It's not a live vaccine. But in Russia, as Margaret was, while we were talking about all this, in Russia they were actually using a live vaccine apparently. And so it wasn't beyond the realm of extreme possibility that at this point, whenever this is, that we would be trying out a live vaccine, because live vaccines tend to work better. So it's a live vaccine, which means that if you don't have an immune system, you could come down with anthrax. And so that was my idea, to have a soldier and anthrax and people coming down with it, and have that be the harbinger of things to come. So I did that too. But that cliffhanger ending. Now, I told you that story at the beginning about having the script without the last 10 pages. And so I was helping Chris with this episode while I was watching Babylon being filmed. And so every single day, it was a nightmare for Chris. I mean, because he was directing Babylon, and at the same time he was writing episode 6. So every day he would give me the pages of episode 6 that he'd gotten. And every day I would make corrections and suggestions. And so we were really working on it together, which was so much fun. And no, I'm wondering what I was saying there for a second. But so it was very, very difficult for him to be doing both at the same time. And the fact that he actually got it done and then got this episode done, I mean, it was, I was really... Oh yeah, so where are the other 10 pages? So at the end, I get to, I'm reading it and I'm reading it and I'm reading it, and then that's the end. And so the first thing I ask him is, where are the other 10 pages? Where's the end? And he goes, no, this is the end. I said, you can't end it there. I said, people are going to throw things at their television. They're going to sue you for, damage to their television. And but no, that's where it ends. Okay? And so, of course, over this last 8 months of learning that there's this whole Twitter fandom of X-Files, which I had no idea about. And many of the Twitter fans are very concerned about the relationship between Mulder and Scully and why they're no longer together. And I, on the other hand, have been worried during this 8 months whether there is going to be a Mulder and Scully, because the alien ship is there and it's exactly what happened to Sveta. And so I'm like, is there going to be a Mulder and Scully? And so that, to me, that was much more important than is there going to be a relationship between them? You know, so that's been, and so I haven't been able to talk about any of this or tweet out any of this. And it's been very hard because I've been very good about spoilers, I think pretty good. So I will stop there, and I will ask you guys for questions. So do you have questions on this episode? Or anything else? Yes, a question there, sir.
Please come down to the microphone.
I will try to ask a question. It's going to be probably a couple of questions. In English, I'm back from Russia.
Okay.
Just don't get scared. Everything's fine. Actually, I'm a musician. I enjoy you guys, the company, and thank you very much. I have friends. She's a TA, and she invited me for this event, and Andrea, and she's working here. She studies here, and thank you for the event. But here's my question.
Yes, what's the question?
Who came up with the symptoms of the sickness of your?
Well, the symptoms are, so the anthrax symptoms are all Margaret, who works in infectious diseases in Canada. So she's a very important infectious disease physician, and she's also in charge of the blood supply and keeping viruses out of the blood supply right now in Canada. So she knows all about anthrax and anthrax symptoms. And so she was coming up with what the symptoms would look like, how the doctors would actually be, you know, because Chris was concerned, should they all be in these, you know, suits to be handling a patient with anthrax? And Margaret was saying, no, they should have gloves on. Margaret was actually very upset that they didn't have lab coats on. Very upset. She said, no, you'd have, and Chris was saying, yes, but they'd be in such a rush, they'd be in such a hurry, and she's going, and they would have lab coats on, you know, even if they were in a rush. So Margaret was coming up with the symptoms.
They're matching with the disease? Like
yes.
Okay. And the second question, if what, like in a year, what kind of, I didn't get it. It's very fun to see it, but I didn't see the first episode, and I saw a couple. What's the significance of this year, or like what is the disease, what is the microbe, what is the potential like threats?
Well, if you have no immune system, you're under threat by everything. It doesn't matter what it is. I mean, a cut, a cold virus, anything like that can kill you. So this is a major threat if you're losing your immune system. And Mulder's in a very bad state because he just, you know, some people it would start earlier. Some people the CRISPR would be working a little bit better on them. Clearly on Mulder, it got started pretty early. So the only thing that can protect him, there's certain things that can be done right now, as Margaret told us all, but he really needs stem cells. And the only one he can get the stem cells from are William. But where is William? William is the son of Scully, and she doesn't know where he is because she gave him up for adoption. So the question is, you know, is William needed to save Mulder? But that's for another episode. If there is another episode, which I sure hope there's another episode, because it can't possibly end here. So thank you very much for your questions. Yes, next question.
Hello, two questions, if I may. One is, didn't smallpox vaccinations terminate in the 80s sometime?
Yes.
So young people actually would not be caught up in this.
So you've missed an important point, which was that the Spartan virus, I wonder who came up with that name. The Spartan virus has a receptor that's on every single cell. So that virus gets into every cell, including egg cells, including sperm cells. You only need one copy of it to start taking out that particular gene. So although the parents were vaccinated back then, they would have passed that on to their children. And so, Frank, anybody who had the smallpox vaccine, all of their children and all of their children's children would all have this CRISPR-Cas in them.
Excellent. In the context of the story, excellent.
Yeah, I know.
The other question I had, and it's not about X-Files, forgive me, but very briefly, did you have any involvement with the brief series, The Lone Gunman by Chris Carter?
No, the only thing I've ever helped with is Chris's mythology, except for a few of the Monster of the Week, but mainly Chris's mythology episodes for the X-Files. I have a day job.
Sure. By the way, as many people here may know, strange but true, several months before the 9/11 attacks, this TV show, The Lone Gunman, premiered. And it was about an airliner flying into the World Trade Center. So you can Google it. It's from March 2001, and then 6 months later, it happened in a different way. But anyway, all right.
Well, I certainly don't hope that this scenario happens.
That's right.
I have a feeling that it probably won't.
All right. Thank you.
Well,
2 questions, actually. One, are you sure that the cigarette smoking man didn't write the last episode? Right, so for my actual question, this is actually about Babylon. Is it possible to have as strong of a placebo effect as Mulder did?
I certainly asked Chris that. And you know, what his response to me was, it's a science fiction show. So that's his response to it. So my guess is no. But it was certainly fun watching that episode being filmed. I mean, I watched the whole Mulder sequence with in the dream, you know, kind of thing, and in the bar. So that was what I actually saw a lot of. It was actually a crazy time watching this episode being filmed, because the first 2 days were all about the terrorists. So I'm thinking, oh my gosh, this is an episode all about terrorism, and it was really scary. I mean, you're watching this, and you're really scared watching it being filmed, except for Arden, who can't seem to make a peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You know, that took a long time. And then there's this bar scene, which is just hilarious. And so I was asking Chris, you know, what is this episode about? You know, can I see the script? He wouldn't give me the script. So I said, well, what's it about? And he wouldn't tell me what it was about. And so I only found out when I watched the episode. But it was certainly one of the funnest days filming I've ever had was the bar scene. And what I'm really hoping is a lot of that ends up on the DVD, because they cut so much. I mean, to watch David Duchovny, you know, doing these lifts with this ballerina, you know, up above his head, and she's smiling. I mean, I was like, how are you smiling? Aren't you scared? And she was going like, he did really well in rehearsal, so, you know, it's okay. And he's flipping her around and stuff. It was really great. Everyone's cheering and clapping and screaming, and they'll cut, and everyone's cheering and clapping and screaming. It was a fun day. And then there's this episode. It's like, oh. It was exciting, wasn't it? Intense. Yeah. Yeah. Kind of edge of your seat. And I've seen it before, and it was still, I was like this the whole time. Yes, question.
Wow, so I was going to ask what it was like watching David Duchovny bust a move, but you just answered it. So.
Watching David dance, I mean, I cannot describe how much fun it was. So the first thing is, Chris told us we were all going to get really, really sick of these 2 songs because we heard them for 14 hours. And when David first comes out there, and it's much, much longer than you saw, and starts doing the achy breaky heart dance, I mean, people, it was hard, you know, because you're not supposed to be cheering or clapping when you're not supposed to be doing that, you know, if it's not supposed to be going on. And, you know, as soon as it stopped, everyone's just clapping and cheering, and Chris is clapping. You know, he's watching it behind some video monitors, but it was right in front of where David was. And everyone's clapping. And then David's coming, running over, oh, play it back, play it back, play it back. And so that he could, you know, use his phone to film it. I mean, it was really magical. And then there's this part, you really didn't see it well, where the girls tear his shirt off. And he's ripped. I mean, he must have worked out. I don't know how long he worked out for, but he looked great. And then he would be walking around without his shirt for a long time. I mean, until they put another one of those tearaway shirts on him. And they actually told me that I could be an extra in it. I know, it was really, so they said, dress country western, like I have country western clothes. But so I had this shirt that kind of was, I had a pair of jeans with me, and they gave me a pair of boots and a hat, and I was all ready, and we were told we can't mouth the words. Do not mouth the words, because then it costs more. If you mouth the words, because then you're like singing it, and you can't sing it. Okay? And so, unfortunately, I didn't have a Canadian work permit, and at the end they said I couldn't do it. And I was ready to be there and follow direct. And they were telling me, don't look in the camera. It's like, yeah, I mean, I know that. But it was really fun.
I also want to ask you real quick, what's the most far-fetched or outrageous idea Chris Carter has ever asked you to rationalize or?
Oh, I think this one was.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I was really surprised when he asked me to kill everybody off.
Right, okay, that makes sense.
I mean, because then, who would be the audience? I mean, it was, and how would he get out of it? I mean, you're killing everybody off. And so that was an unusual one. But what I really loved is that when I gave him the idea of this ADA, and this gene and getting rid of this gene, he was so happy because I think he was worried about the episode, how it was going to come together, and he was just so happy, and so he asked me, write a lot more, and I wrote like 4 single-spaced pages. I had a lot, which he said, no, you can't use I had a dream kind of thing where you go back and the cigarette smoking man takes his first puff, he's real young then. I thought it was good. And Chris was saying, no, you can't do a back in time thing, because he was doing it with Monica, and I didn't realize that he was planning on that. So, but that was about the craziest thing I've ever been asked to do. But I've been asked to do a lot of crazy things for the show, so definitely.
Thank you so much.
That was a crazy one. Yeah.
Hi. I understood at the start that the alien DNA has 2 extra amino acids.
Oh, 2 extra nucleotides.
Okay. Would it then amplify properly?
Yeah, so that was the whole problem. Was that, okay, so in case you missed it, I kept telling Chris, you sure you want to use all the science? He said, yes, I want more science. So originally, we just had Scully amplify up her DNA, and it just worked, okay, however it worked. And he said there's not enough tension. I want more tension. So people who've been following this for a while know that the reason that Chris gives for breaking up Mulder and Scully is because it was for the tension. I've been hearing about tension for a long time, okay? So he said, no, he wants more tension. So the idea was so then I came up with this idea that, well, it won't work the first time because they're just using the way we would normally do a PCR reaction, where you would just, you have nucleotides, you buy them from the store, you have, your buffer, you've got this, you add it together, and it doesn't amplify. And the question was, well, why doesn't it amplify? And of course it doesn't amplify because there's 2 additional nucleotides. So Scully must have, in her alien DNA, see, it's all worked out, okay? In her alien DNA, she also has it codes for the enzymes required to convert the nucleotides into these 2 additional alien nucleotides. So she has the alien nucleotides in her cells. So when Einstein says, I need a larger sample, it's because they can use those nucleotides in the sample. So they can take a lot more blood, concentrate it down. She already has those 2 extra nucleotides in her blood, and now they can add that, and now it should work.
But to go
and it did.
To go industrial style, you're going to have to find those nucleotides.
Well, yes. I mean, well, they have to realize how they can. So the idea is that they would be able to then synthesize this, right? But initially, it would require Scully's blood.
Yeah.
Okay. But that was all worked out. So Chris was asking about that. Well, how long would it take? And
that's proof of concept.
So where are the last 10 pages? Where are those last 10 pages? But we don't have those last 10 pages. We need another season. Do we all agree we need another season? Yes.
Vaccine.
Yes, please. Thank you. Another season. Season 11.
Hi, Anne.
Hi.
I'm an astrophysicist, and I wanted to tell you that the character of Scully was so important for many decades to me. Her confidence and her competence, succeeding and kicking ass in a male-dominated world. And I wanted to ask you about the critical scenes in this episode from that perspective. There's something called the Bechdel test, where you can look at something like a television show or a movie, and you fail the Bechdel test if you don't have more than two main female characters, and if they don't talk about something other than a man, and they also have to have a conversation with each other. But your episode passes the Bechdel test with flying colors, 100%.
And yes, and I totally owe that to Chris. Now, I have to tell you, there's a little story. When I was reading the original script, so I didn't know Babylon, okay? I just knew this episode. So in this episode, there's this character called Einstein and this character called Miller. I have no idea who these people are. And I must admit, I pictured the character of Einstein as a man. Okay, because I didn't know. And then when I'm watching Babylon being filmed and Einstein, and it's Lauren, and it's this petite woman, you know, with red hair. Gee, I wonder where that came from. I was shocked. I turned to Chris. I said, she's a woman? And he gave me this big, huge grin and started laughing. And I shouldn't have had that thought. Do you see? I mean, that was the wrong thought. I should have said, oh, sure, she's a woman, you know, of course. But I didn't. So I really loved that he made the new character, the woman, the doctor, again, he made her a woman. And there were some people on the internet who were like, oh, it's just a Scully clone and stuff. It's not a Scully clone. But I love the fact that it's the two women who are saving the world. And when Scully is, what I also really liked is that Scully, you know, she should be there trying to continue to save the world, right? I mean, she should stay there to save the world. And instead, she runs off to save Mulder. So it's like the world, Mulder. World, Mulder. And who does she choose? She chooses Mulder. And to me, that's saying something about her and her relationship with him. That is more than just, are they holding hands or something like that. I mean, she's literally, the world, she's saying that, let me go and save Mulder. And so
Einstein to save the world.
Pardon?
She left Einstein behind.
She did leave Einstein behind to save the world, but Einstein was also really sick, and she was the only one that was well. So instead of staying there and making sure the doctors got the IVs and Einstein wasn't just going to collapse on the floor or something, and boy, that vaccine must have worked really fast, you know. Yeah, that she runs off to save Mulder, so I really like that. But then, of course, she had a close encounter, and now we don't know what's about to happen. Actually, I must admit, I do know. But that's one of those spoilers I am not going to say.
So out of all of the X-Files episodes you've worked on where you had to provide some scientific underpinning for Monster of the Week, which Monster of the Week do you think was the most scientifically plausible?
You know, I didn't do a lot of underpinnings for the Monsters of the Week, so I don't know if any of them are plausible. I think that's where a lot of the science fiction came in. They certainly had some wonderful monsters, and you know, when there's, I used to get some hate mail, I must admit. It was really hard. Now, I mean, on the internet, it's real easy. You just block them, right? But when you get letters from, especially from fellow scientists, saying that I'm promoting pseudoscience and you know, and I'm thinking that so many young women are getting into science and they've got this wonderful scientist character, and I just want to help make what she's saying be realistic. And then you're getting this hate mail from people saying that you're promoting pseudoscience. That was really tough. What I would reply is the monsters, you know, they're not supposed to be real. This is a science fiction show. So there really is no scientific underpinning. And the problem, of course, is that, you know, Scully's always coming up with some rational explanation for what's going on. You know, it isn't the roots of the trees that are rising up and, you know, and entombing people. It's, you know, that there's rain and then the ground is wet and it's opening up. And I mean, she's got the rational. And And the problem is that most of the time, almost all the time, she's wrong. And it really is the deranged, what is it? The deranged head that's frozen of the twin and psychically communicating, and yeah. But it's a science fiction show, and so I'm perfectly fine with it being a science fiction show. And it's just nice if what the scientists are doing, you know, makes some sense and actually come off as being part of the solution and not part of the problem. Although I did show you that the one episode where they did have the mad scientist, you know, the postmodern Prometheus. But most of the time, the scientists are there to be helpful and be part of the solution. And so I was really happy to be a part of that. And it took 5 years before I even told anyone that I was doing this. So, but it was fun. Yeah. Yeah, oh, question here.
Can you sort of review what the time frame for this episode was? Because was this one day or how, and can they do what they did in that time frame? Because we see that a lot in movies where they're going to make a vaccine from this person's blood, and you know, I wonder how does that really play out in terms of
right. So this clearly takes place 6 weeks after the first episode. Okay, and it says that in the script. I mean, so this is 6 weeks later. And in the first episode, there's some hints that something's going wrong. So it's really taking quite a while before the immune system is starting to go down. And so in some people, it would go down further, and you should start seeing, you know, some like measles outbreaks and things like that. But it wasn't anything that was going to concern anyone. And that's part of the point of slowly depressing the immune systems, is that it wasn't something that people were supposed to actually immediately, oh, gee, we've got some alien virus, let's take care of it. So this was something that was much more gradual, much more hidden. So, you know, again, you're talking about alien DNA. There's a very important point I've always made about aliens. Aliens can do almost anything, okay? Almost anything. So clearly, because it's alien DNA, it's working really fast. But if it was not alien DNA, no, there's no way. I mean, it would take a long time before they could figure out a vaccine and a much longer time to test it, if everyone wasn't dying already, which means they probably wouldn't test it too much. And then, you know, are people really too sick? Because the CRISPR-Cas that's already worked on your cells, I mean, those cells don't have that gene anymore. So all they would be doing is really protecting the few immune system cells that are left. And there are germ cells in there, I mean, there are stem cells in there, which can then repopulate the immune system. So the hope is to get them. But some people are just too far gone, and unfortunately, Mulder is one of them. Oh, question, yes.
Yes, ma'am. First off, thank you for this. This has been great.
Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it.
For the amount of time that you've been associated with the show, you probably went into it with some fixed worldview ideas. Have they changed because of proximity to some of the crazy people that you've been dealing with creating the show? Thank you.
I don't think that they've changed. I think that I mean, first off, I never thought that it would come back. And maybe I never thought so because I knew Chris, and I heard Chris say many times how he would never do it again. Because, I mean, 9 years of a show where they're putting so much craftsmanship into each episode is extremely draining. I mean, they're just, you cannot imagine how draining it is to do this. So I never thought that it would come back. And so now that it has come back, you know, I'm just very grateful. And when I was there on the set for a week watching this, what was really amazing is how many people in the crew and the cast were so excited about it being back. I mean, especially like Mitch Pileggi. He was like, I'll drop anything to come back, especially if he didn't have to shave his beard, you know, because he didn't want to shave his beard. And Chris, you know, actually made some phone calls and found out that if you're at a certain level in the FBI, you don't have to shave your beard. So he let Mitch keep his beard. Mitch was just really happy. So he was just so happy to be back. And David just seemed so happy to be back. And Jillian I didn't see because she filmed all of her scenes early in Babylon and then had to rush back to England because she was also filming there. So it was really just a rush back and forward for her. So I didn't actually see her this time, although we've met before a number of times. So all I can say is the amount of craftsmanship that went into these 6 episodes I thought was really phenomenal. And I want so badly for there to be more. And luckily I'll be one of the first to know. and I will, if he lets me, I will then tweet it out. Okay, but I always ask Chris, what can I say and what can't I say? So, but right now, we're just hoping that this episode got a big audience and that Fox is excited about doing more. And they seem to be. They seem to be excited when they saw what was in front of them. One thing that I heard when I was calling Fox, because I had story credit, so I had to talk to Fox, was that they had been viewing the dailies, and the woman who was talking to me said they were incredibly excited by what they were seeing, especially my episode. So I was like, yes. But one thing that I didn't mention was, when you're writing a scientific paper, there's 3 people who see your paper. 3 reviewers. Okay, and I'm an editor of Journal of Virology, so I know this from the editor's point of view. And so there's 3 people. So if they hate your paper, and if they think that you're some sort of a lunatic now, and what on earth has happened to Anne Simon that she would write this piece of garbage? It's 3 people. And this is, 50 million people are seeing something that actually has my name attached to it. And you're wondering, what are the reviewers going to say, and what are people going to think? And it's a lot more than just 3. So I'm still a little nervous about it, and I'm waiting to see what my friends here in the front who've been following Twitter right now, and if people are saying they like it. Yeah, okay. 'Cause I can't wait to get home and kind of, they're crying. Okay. But, you're just hoping that fans liked what happened, because I really loved this episode, and I hope people liked it as well. And the fact that Chris put all that science in and kept it in there, and kept saying, no, give me more and more. And it took a lot of correcting. I must admit, he's not a scientist, so it took a lot of correcting to try to get the science to be as correct as we could make it. And I thought that at the end it was really good. There are very, very few little, mistakes or where we took liberties or things like that. So, yeah, questions?
So first I want to say thank you very much to you and to those who helped set up this event. This is a lot of fun. I look forward to coming back here for season 11.
Yes, we will. If there's a season 11, which, when there's a season 11, we will do it again.
Absolutely.
I think, yeah.
So I want to know, do you have any ideas for a possible future Monster of the Week episode? And if so, would you like to share them with us?
Oh, no, I haven't even. I've been so concentrating on what I call episode 7. So in my mind and with Margaret, we've totally mapped out an episode 7 that I think is so incredible. And I'm just really hoping that Chris likes it and that he knows about it. He seems to like it. And that they go for it if there's going to be more, because there's just so much we can do with this particular scenario as it stands right now. It's just endless. So I'm really excited about that. No, I have not thought of any monsters of the week. Not since Postmodern Prometheus and the Flies. I had a few before then, but he kept saying no, done that, no. But I'm always welcome, suggestions, and I'll be thinking about it more. It's just that there weren't going to be any more episodes. So, these 6 are such a gift that I haven't even started thinking about it. But I was just really happy when this came to me, this idea of getting rid of the immune system. And so I hope people like that. That was different, wasn't it? That was not just the same thing. You like that? Yeah, good. So, yeah, we have an immunologist sitting here in the front row, MD, and I like it that she's going like this, so that means that at least we kind of got it right. I must admit, I work on plants. Okay, I work on plant viruses. So anytime I have to deal with the immune system, this is just not easy thing for me to do. Plants do not have the same immune system. Yeah, I keep telling that to NIH when they have me on panels. They give me these immunology grants, and I keep saying, no B cells, no T cells. No plants. I know plants. Plants do not have B cells and T cells. Please, Okay, but yeah, question here.
I just had a fun thought. Maybe in the new episode or new series, when Fox and Scully go to see Skinner, it'll be at the new FBI center up in Greenbelt.
Ooh, wouldn't that be nice? That's right, and that's just 5 minutes from my house. Maybe it'll be a new tourist. We'll bring tourists into Bowie. Yeah, whoa. Bowie is a real attraction here in Maryland. Yeah. You're all laughing. That's not good. On YouTube, they're going to think, there's something wrong with Bowie. I love it. But yeah, wouldn't that be great if we used the new FBI building? Excellent. Excellent point. Yes.
Hi.
Hi.
First of all, I'm an undergrad researcher, and it was really, really cool to see Agent Dana Scully doing PCR, which is literally like all I do in my lab for the last couple of years. So
and wasn't that a lovely
awesome.
gel? And I kept saying to him, markers. I want a marker lane. I want to see a lane of markers, and then I want to see nothing. And then I want to see a marker lane and something. You know what I mean? Because I didn't want to just see a blank gel and then a blank gel with one little thing. And so those beautiful marker lane, wasn't that nice?
It was fantastic.
He sent me a picture of it. So I've had this picture for about 8 months of that. And because he showed me a picture of the gel, he said, he had to light it funny, and they couldn't use the light from the UV lamp. I mean, they had to do a whole blue light thing because there wasn't enough light, UV, light for the camera to pick it up. But yeah, it was a great gel.
Yeah, it was fantastic. I just forgot my question.
Oh, that's a lot like me, but you're too young to do that. I do that now a lot, but.
Well, thank you so much, and thank you to everyone who put this on. This was fantastic.
Thank you. Oh, another question, yes.
Well, first off, thanks so much for doing this. This is really, really cool. I have a question about the general mythos.
About what?
The mythos.
Okay.
That, the mythology that...
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I may have to ask some people who are a little bit more in tune with it.
I don't think so. It's a really simple question. In your humble opinion, how much of this do you think is like Chris Carter writing to some like master scheme that he has in his head that he's created? He's like really zoned in on it. And how much of it is just him creating this wonderful universe with wonderful characters and then just making it up on the week to week or story arc to story arc?
Well, okay. So how much of this is Chris actually having something in mind, and how much of it is just making it up on the fly? And certainly the extra 2 nucleotides was made up on the fly because that was me, and I just came up with that. So everything that's happened since then, and the whole alien DNA, what was his name? The little kid, Gibson. Yeah. So Gibson with that DNA and the activation of that was all me originally. So I know that when Margaret and I were discussing this episode, Margaret, she can quote from all the episodes. I mean, she's a really hardcore fan. So we would be saying, okay, this fits in with this episode and this one and this episode. And so we were actually trying to fit in with a lot of the different episodes, thinking about the episodes when we were trying to come up with this scenario. So Chris has frequently said to me things like, no, we can't do that because we did this in season 5, or we did this in season 7. So he knows it. But at the same time, he wants to keep to the timeline, but he doesn't want to keep to it really, completely strictly to the mythology. So I think that people have to understand that there's a little bit of wiggle room in there. But I hope they can see how this episode fits in with the mythology. I think it explains a lot. What was the conspiracy? This is the conspiracy. Now, did Chris know that this was the conspiracy? Obviously not, because I told him what the conspiracy was. But he knew that there was a conspiracy. He just didn't know what it was. But when I gave him this idea, he was just, this is amazing. I mean, he was so happy. I mean, he was just I want more, I want more, I want more. And every time I sent him these pages, typed pages, you know, he was extremely happy. I mean, I could tell how happy he was because he could see it in his head. He could see that it fit what had been done before. But I actually had Scully being a victim originally. Yeah, well, and then he was like, no, Scully's alien DNA. That's got to be the key, and he was absolutely right. And so I switched it. But I had thought that he wanted Scully to be a victim. I had misunderstood something he'd said. So I came up with a whole thing how she would become a victim, and it was like, no, it's got to be Scully. So he was absolutely right there. So I thought he wrote a great episode too. I mean, I was just, you know, it's edge of your seat kind of episode. And after the last one was kind of, you know, it was funny, and it was a lot of, you know, there was the religion and then there was the terrorism, and so there was a lot of different elements to it. And this was just nonstop, just adrenaline. I really liked that about it.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Two things. Do you have any idea what it costs to make an episode of the series? And the second question was, what's it like to really work with the actors involved personally at a human level?
So it's a lot of money. The X-Files is very expensive to produce. There was a chance for a 7th episode. Now, the 7th episode was going to come before this one. This was always going to be the last one. But there was an episode that Gabe had written, who's one of the producers. And Chris, while I was there, was on the phone a lot with Fox, trying to get this 7th episode. And Fox, I guess, did not want to come through with the money. I think that was, because, you know, I'd heard David say, look, if you can do it before the end of August, you know, that's fine. But if it's after that, I'm going to need more. You know, I mean, because the actors then had other commitments and stuff. But Fox didn't come up with it. And you know, so we were talking about that. And frankly, they had been very generous because really they had the money to do these wonderful special effects. I mean, that spaceship coming down. I mean, to me, when I watch these 6 episodes, I'm not looking at television. I'm looking at hour-long movies because the amount of time, you know, it wasn't just, you know, 3 or 4 takes. It's 20 takes so that, you know, you get it exactly the way you want it. And that's much more movie-like. So these are very expensive. Are they the most expensive dramatic series? I'm sure they're one of them. So that's why I think Fox really needed to know that they would have the ratings there. And no one knew. I mean, we were hoping for strong ratings. But back in May and June and July, I was there in July and August, you know, we had no idea that people would even like them and would they watch them. And it's a series from 20 years ago, and the actors are older. And we thought, you know, is that going to be a problem? And thank God it wasn't. You know, the ratings were great, but we were all very nervous about the ratings. And so I was emailing Chris everything I heard about ratings. So, you know, in Twitter, everyone's tweeting out things that they see. And I'm immediately sending them to Chris. Okay, the ratings were this. Okay, the 3-day ratings were this. And he kept saying, thank you, and for, you know, letting him know, because it looked like they really were outstanding. And so Fox must have been impressed by it. So hopefully they will come up with the funds and that the actors will be enthusiastic about it, as they seem to be right now. And that Chris will be enthusiastic about it now that he's had a chance to relax for the last 4 or 5 months. I think he's ready. I'm hoping that he's ready to do some more. But it won't be a whole series. It might be another 6. It might be a movie, something like that. So I think that's going to be the discussions, is where to go at this point. Yeah?
Hi, I was just wondering if you knew if any of the actors, or Chris Carter himself, are believers?
Yeah, so Chris is an old friend. I mean, when I was in my 20s, you know, I'm the same age as Chris. I mean, he was always over for all the major holidays, and so I knew him when he was a surfer. You know.
Do you know if any of them are believers? Like, do they believe in all the?
No, I don't think any of them are believers. Chris isn't. But I knew him, and then back when I started working with Chris on this, I would go out to the sets, especially when they moved it to Los Angeles, because I'm from Los Angeles. And so I would go out to the sets, and I you know, of course you meet the actors. And when I wrote the book, the wonderful thing is that Margaret, who's become a very good friend of mine, she was just a big fan, and she read my book, and so she emailed me and said, I read your book, I'm a virologist, I really liked it. And we actually became really good friends. So she came out to the set with me in LA. And so she got to spend a whole day out there on the set having a great time. And she and her husband became very good friends with Chris and Dory. And Margaret and Blair Fearon are actual characters in the second movie because of that. So you might remember those names from it. So I like to just tell Margaret that because she read my book, she got some great new friends, and she gets to go on the sets of her favorite show ever, and now she gets to have story credit, and she gets to help him with all the medical stuff. So good for me and good for her. But yes, I've had dinner with Jillian and her mother at this event. Just an interesting aside, her mother's brother, so Jillian's uncle, is a plant virologist. And so when we were having dinner, her mother says, she found out I was a scientist. And her mother says, oh, my brother's a scientist, but you won't know him. He's a plant virologist. I'm like, yes, I'll know him. And I did know him. And so it was just a funny moment. But we met, David and Jillian, and then Robert Patrick, and Annabeth Gish. So they were there. She's lovely. And he's lovely. They're just great. Jillian's just a wonderful human being. David is much more relaxed than he used to be, and he loves playing his music. He talks about it a lot. He's always showing us these videos of him and his concerts. It was just a great time. At the set of Babylon, they had to keep taking the sets down. They had to keep getting the extras ready. It took a long time, especially when, I don't know if you guys all saw Babylon. The honky-donk, gadonk part of that thing, yeah. Well, the extras, the dancers came out, and they were dressed like they were in the video. And Chris's assistant caught that and said that the censors will never let you do this, and they all had to go change. So we're all waiting around. So it was great because we had this big bar table. We're standing. And there's the lone gunman there, and Mitch, and David, and me. And we're just sitting there talking for like an hour and a half. It was just so much fun. I feel very fortunate to have been able to do that. So, are there any other questions? Are we done with questions? Well, thank you very much for coming.